meeting of the Fitchburg City Council, November 24th, 2020. Committee members present this evening, myself, Councilor Di Natale, Chairman. Also present, Councilors Zarella, Boschman, and Vice President Walsh. We also have Mayor Di Natale here, Chief of Staff Patrick Hare, and City Auditor and Finance Director Calvin Brooks. And we also have present this evening for testimony purposes, Executive Director of the Community Development Office, Tom Skorsky, and Economic Development Director Mary Jo Bohart. With that said, I will begin with the agenda items. Beginning with 22920, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the CARES Act, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, CDBG CV program, and the approximate amount of $200,000 for the purpose of said grant, which is for small business assistance grants. A letter from Tom Skorsky to the mayor dated November 12th. Dear Mayor Di Natale, I respectfully request the appropriation of $200,000 for small business assistance grants to be charged to the CDBG CV program. The appropriation of these funds in this amount and for this purpose is consistent with the CARES Act regulations. This appropriation shall be subject to receipt of funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. These funds will be used to supplement the existing business assistance program, which supports small businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Given that, as the COVID cases begin to rise throughout the city, we anticipate that this will lead to disruptions in the business climate, and there will be a greater need for these funds. As of today, Fitchburg has been designated a high-risk community by the Commonwealth for the third consecutive week, which means that Fitchburg businesses must move from Phase 3 Part 2 to Phase 3 Part 1 in the state's reopening plan. Were the city to continue to see rising numbers, there is a risk that we could fall back even further and more businesses would be forced to close. We would like to be prepared for such an event. Due to the time-sensitive nature of this request, I also request suspension of the rules, which we didn't do. And that was from Mr. Skorsky. Tom, anything you'd like to add to that letter?
Just briefly, I requested suspension of the rules initially when caseloads were getting pretty high in the city, and there was some concern that we might go back even further than Phase 3, Step 1. And I just wanted to be proactive and ahead of that if that situation were to present itself. We ended up facing a situation where, we feel like having it approved, hopefully at Finance Committee tonight and then at Council next week, we've got enough time to get things out the door for a December release of our third round of CDBG business grants. I want to respect the rules of the council, so I didn't want to utilize suspension of the rules unless I really had to. So I rescinded that request, but otherwise happy to take any questions on what we're doing here and why we see this as a priority.
I have a question. Simply, how many businesses do we believe this money will assist?
So it somewhat depends.
Or is it an application process?
So the first two rounds, what we did was a $2,500 grant. So if you do the math here, and I was not a math major, so I got to get my calculator out here, that would be 80 businesses. Were we to follow the same criteria that we did in the first two rounds, what we're going to be doing once we open things up is really take in the need from the community, get a sense of what's out there. We might find ourselves in a situation where we have a small number of businesses with a greater need than $2,500, or we might find ourselves in a situation where we've got a ton of businesses and everybody needs it, in which case we go back to the $2,500 formula. Trying to strike the balance between really making an impact on the business community, but also spreading it out, so to speak, to the many that need it. So it'll be somewhat dependent on our intake.
I have Councilor Boschman.
One quick question. How much are we giving to local businesses total? Is it almost $1 million or better?
It's once you take this into account, I believe. So to back up a little bit, our first round was 100,000. Our second round is 130,000. This is our third round. That would be 200,000. So cumulatively, from just the community development department through our community development block grant program. That's what 230 or 430 rather. And then if you take into account, we've got another 60,000 that came in through TDI, through mass development. That puts us up, at 490. And then the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority has, I believe, now put $200,000 cumulatively toward the effort. So about 690,000 in total. And it is worth noting, this is just a portion of our CDBG CARES Act funding for round two. We have about 230,000 more, I believe, and we're going to be spending the next month or so really determining if there are any other needs in the community and allocating that funding accordingly. Some of it might go towards businesses, but there's also other needs like rent support, homelessness assistance, and what have you.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a motion made from Vice President Walsh and seconded by Council Zarella to accept the grant. Taking a roll call vote. Council Zarella,
Yes.
Vice President Walsh,
yes,
Council Boschman,
Yes.
and I am a yes. It passes 4-0. Before we move on to the next order, I just wanted to mention briefly that President Kuchmarek informed me earlier this morning that he will not be able to attend tonight's meeting due to a work conflict with his current employer. We will move on to the next item, which is 230-20, order that the city of Fitchburg approves the expenditure of funds from the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development Gateways Rehabilitation Program grant and the approximate amount of $275,000 for the purpose of said grant, which is to provide funding to repair code violations in 2 to 4 unit properties. I have a letter here from Mr. Skorsky on November 10th to the mayor stating that this grant will be used to provide funding to repair code violations in 2 to 4 unit properties where cited code violations exist or where insurance is being canceled because of substandard conditions. The program will be administered by the Division of Housing and Development in partnership with code departments, primarily the Board of Health. Mr. Skorsky, anything you'd like to add?
So this is a new program from DAD. The maximum award was $275,000. We received the maximum award, which I think is a testament to our housing development division's work they put in getting a really, Liz Murphy and the team getting a really competitive application together. About $35,000 per unit is the maximum amount that would be put towards this. And again, it's not a traditional program like we have our homeowner rehab and our down payment assistance program where we go out and market this program aggressively. And this is really more of an internal marketing process. The intake comes from our NICE committee, our problem property task force. It comes from our Board of Health primarily, if not our city solicitor, police, fire, all the members of the committee. So when a problem reaches a level of substandard conditions that we need to put significant work into it, we often only have the stick. This is really the carrot approach, and we can offer some incentives to help investors rehab their properties.
Vice President Walsh?
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Liz Murphy and the people that she works with for applying for and getting this grant. $275,000 is surely nothing to sneeze at, and I just want to thank her for that.
It's great work.
Council Boschman?
You said $35,000 per unit?
Per unit, correct.
So what happens if you get a 4-family and the porches are all torn down, but you still got work inside the units? And it goes higher, would you support that?
So 35,000 per unit would put that over 120,000, right? So potentially we could, given the needs, if they were significant. So 3 to 7 properties, 10 to 15 units. That's our ultimate goal for this project. And there might be potential to actually create a revolving fund where we can take on more properties in the future. We need more work and insight from the state. It is a brand new program. This is the first they're releasing it.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion made by Councilor Walsh and seconded by Councilor Zarella to approve. I will take a roll call vote on approval. Councilor Zarella?
Yes.
Vice President Walsh?
Yes,
Council Boschman?
Yes.
And I am a yes, it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda, 23120, order that the city of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation Mass Trails Program Grant in the approximate amount of $39,687 for the purpose of said grant, which is to initiate a consistent and coordinated wayfinding system for the city's trail networks. Letter here from Mr. Skorsky to the mayor on October 19th states as follows. The funds in question will be used to initiate a wayfinding signage system, which will allow better public access to the city's extensive trail networks. In addition to installation of this consistent and coordinated signage, several trailhead kiosks will be installed at major trailhead parking areas. This award is subject to receipt of funding from the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Attached is a copy of the executed contract with the state. If you have any questions about this award, please do not hesitate to contact me. Tom, anything you'd like to add?
Only, there's another example where I'm riding on the coattails of some great folks, both in my department, Amy LeBlanc, and in the community, the Trails Vision Group, Larry Casasa, Ralph Baker really leading the effort, and many others as well. They put together a Trails Vision. One of the things they identified was a deficit in wayfinding signage in some of our important trails throughout the city. This grant will help pay for signage in, I believe, 9 different trails throughout the city. So it's a great program. Looking forward to implementing it in partnership with DPW.
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah.
Council Boschman.
Tom, you and I already talked about the sign, and you know how I feel. The only thing I ask you after the meeting, do me a favor, go on your Lexus and ask them to play that song, Sign, Sign. Everywhere you look, there's a sign. All right? Thanks.
I wish I had a Lexus.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made by Councilor Walsh and seconded by Councilor Zarella to approve. Taking a roll call vote. Councilor Zarella,
Yes.
Councilor Boschman,
Yes.
Councilor Walsh,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. It's unanimous 4-0.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you.
to approve. I mean, make a motion. You said Ben.
Adjourn. Okay, motion is made and seconded to
Second.
adjourn.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Happy
Same to the rest of
Thanksgiving.
you.
Same to you, Mayor.
Stay safe. Okay.
We are
Bye.
adjourned. Thank you.